Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Are you ready for some spoilers? Alrighty, let's jump right in. Episode 1 of Season 2 of The Mandalorian has just dropped, and I loved it! Alright, again, warning, there are going to be so many spoilers in this. So, let's review Season 2, Episode 1, The Marshal. Alright, what can I say? What can I say, I ask you? I love it, I love it. I'm not saying that watching the episode was a completely enjoyable experience as you were watching it. There were a few places where I felt a little disappointed, a little trepidation, but it all paid off on the end. And looking back, even if for me, as a long-term Star Wars fan who read as many of the books as I could get my hands on at the library growing up as a teenager, in the EU, it's called now Legends, if this episode wasn't perfect for me, it does create an atmosphere that is perfect for the series. I'll get into how that is later. But, spoilers! There is no burying the lead. This was wonderful. Nearly a perfect episode, and I think the reason I felt it less than perfect was the result of a deliberate choice on the director's part that I fully understand and approved of. A nearly perfect episode. Nearly. There's this tiny bit of awkwardness at first. Something in the lines that our beloved Pedro is giving just feels off. I'm still not sure what it is. The emotional tone just doesn't match the scenes at first. It was almost as if Pedro was rusty, and it took him a few scenes to warm up. But at first his lines felt a little bit, just a tiny bit stilted. That one quibble aside, I just love how much the creators clearly love this episode. They had fun crafting this work of art. I genuinely get the feeling that this creative process was two little boys on the living room floor with a box of Legos. They had built some speeders out of their Legos that were non-regulation. They didn't come out of a box, and the boys were flying these speeders over the desert of their imagination as they pieced together a story about the adventures of Boba Fett after watching The Empire Strikes Back. Then they grew up, got advanced degrees in cinematography, and gave us this masterpiece. This episode, it's also an homage to a whole list of great movies. The first and most obvious is Jaws. When that mouthful of crat dragon teeth breaches the sandy surface of Tatooine, it nearly broke my immersion in the story. It was so very much a Jaws homage. But it was awesome enough to keep me in the story. You also have the newly minted small town law enforcement in the Marshal. Then, of course, you have the Jurassic Park reference with the tethered bantha taking the place of the tethered goat as bait to lure out the dangerous predator. Then, of course, this is basically the story of the classic horror comedy Tremors. The crap dragon looks quite a bit different from my mental image of them from Legends, but it does look a darn awful lot like the graboids from Tremors. The homages fly thick in this, and that's only scratching the surface of them. But before we go on, let's laugh at human absurdity a little. While we're laughing at this, today is the last day of my Indiegogo campaign for Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data. If you want to explore a universe where all of the aliens are cute and prone to cuddling big scary humans, go check out my book. Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data at Indiegogo, link below the video. But back to the beginning. The episode starts off very artistically. The way the opening is framed might have been a scene that appeared on any stage in the Western world since Shakespeare's time. While I am sure that the cast and crews used every tool at their disposal, this beautiful little intro could be recreated on any high school stage in the world. It is simple, it is elegant, it uses the darkness to hide where reality blurs into fantasy. It calls to mind something I noticed from the first season. This looks like the scene from the classic John Wayne Western, The Three Godfathers. The scene where a nearly dead John staggers into town clutching the baby. The lighting, the composition, the musical score. This is a very direct homage, be it deliberate or not. Except that in this case the man strides into town. Or not strides, not struts. I'm trying to find the word to describe how he walked into town. Help me out in the comments below if you can describe that. Saunter, maybe? Anyway, he walks into town instead of crawling. Then the eyes, the glowing red eyes, begin peering out from the graffiti-marked walls. Listen, I'm going to try my darndest to keep this episode down to a reasonable length, but there is so much going on in every scene. It was like the director took the every scene should do 3 things rule and just cranked it up to 11 instead of 3. I am sure the graffiti on those walls tells a story. I can't wait until I have time to go back and look them over inch by inch. They give the location a history, a flavor, a politics. They make this unknown planet on the outer rim come alive. The graffiti, these walls, they show that this place, wherever it is, it's lawless. It gives an air of hope and hopelessness. There are people out there making art in the presence of extreme danger, and that is only enhanced by those glowing red eyes that peer out of every dark space. You don't know what they are at the start of the episode, and you don't know what they are at the end of the episode. They're just a sort of manifestation of danger and death. Then the action starts with some back and forth between Mando and the other character, and we are once again put full force how utterly helpless Din Djarin is a father, dragging baby Mando along to places where he's saturated in violence. I mean, the villain of the episode calls this out. You shouldn't have the kid there, and Mando just goes, the kid goes where I go. So Mando seems to think he has to drag Baby Yoda into these positions. But anyway, going back to that villain, that main villain, do any of you remember, oh my goodness, are any of you old enough to remember the live-action version of 101 Dalmatians when it came out? Do you remember what the Gamer Boy Prodigy said about a good villain? It's not hatred that's important, it's a desire to annihilate, only he said it in an adorable British accent. Boy, and how do you want that character annihilated? But this isn't just some petty criminal. This whole character is an homage to the classic movie The Godfather. This slimy villain has substance, punch. You think we are going to be seeing a lot of him. And I think this also might be an homage to the movie Zulu, about that famous battle between the Zulu Empire and the British Empire. There's an opening scene in there where there's a bunch of people watching a fight scene like this. Anyway, it seems like a very similar scene artistically, but it's definitely a Godfather homage. And this is the villain that adding to this Godfather air, the villain even indicates he has a concern for the duties of family. Then in a flash, the scene turns and you know that this one dies. The way this show plays with tropes is so much fun. When Mando says that the villain won't die by his hand, all you can think of, or at least all I could think of, was how the villain was going to die, because die he would. That was obvious. Anyone who has ever heard a single good story knew that. And yet, this show plays with tropes so well, you weren't entirely sure. There was a little niggling doubt. Was he going to die? And that doubt lingers past the end of the episode, because you don't know what the things with the red eyes were. Baby Yoda is there, of course, and he has developed some nice self-preservation habits. We see him duck out of sight, still being protected by Quill's gift, and still being exposed to the violence and danger of the life that Mando leads. Then the camera pans to our favorite planet farthest from the bright center of the universe, and the episode starts in earnest. Now, this scene will feel awkward and unnecessary to fanatical fans, but I can accept them as good art because they will serve our newest Alakites to the sisterhood of Baby Yoda lovers. Welcome, sisters and brethren. Anyway, the mechanic Peli is back. I love this character. She reminds me of so many of the mechanics I knew growing up as a child. They just got her character perfect. I don't know if she's just the perfect casting, but I like this actress in this role. But anyway, she's back, and the creators have playfully and lovingly given her all of our lines. I mean, that is her role in this episode. It's to represent the most wholesome elements of the fandom and their reactions to Season 1. She comments on how Mando's attitude towards Droid has changed, and has a little debate with herself about it, and she's about to start scolding him when he whips Baby Yoda out of his side satchel and distracts her with Baby Yoda's cuteness, ending the argument instantly. She immediately asks how much to buy Baby Yoda. Just kidding, but not really. Seriously, if you have any more, I want one. A clear and friendly call out to all the fans who spent months howling for Baby Yoda merch of their own, as the House of Mouse stumbled out of the gate and didn't have the wanted merch ready. Specifically, they didn't have the life-size Baby Yoda dolls that everybody desperately wanted. And the writers gave Peli this line to lovingly make fun of it. Oh my word, I don't know if it was supposed to be a joke to make us laugh, a gesture of sympathy and shared trouble that was supposed to pull on our heartstrings, or what, but there's this, one of the final lines they give her couldn't be an accident. Peli, in one line of dialogue that felt perfectly natural to the context of the show, a line that won't age badly because it makes so much sense and is perfectly relevant to the show, and yet it's also perfectly relevant to these troubled times. It's a graceful statement of sympathy on the creator's part, and I just want to kiss Filoni. Except, you know, I can't, because I can't go out past the city walls because of the, you know, these troubled times. And I think that was just a very tasteful comment that serves well in the moment, but will also age well because it's universal. Now, all of this, the call out to the fans, the homages to all the great movies from cheesy science fiction to artistic masterpieces like The Godfather, the mere fact that are once again on Tatooine. This could have felt cheesy, like it made the universe too small, but it didn't, and I think I know why. Nothing is done here without a purpose. Everything is doing many things. On the one hand, this is reassuring the fandom, the diehard Star Wars fans who love this show, that The Mandalorian isn't changing. It's giving us bits and pieces of EU and Legends lore, the best bits and pieces, picking it out of the general duff that the hundreds of books necessitated. It's reassuring us that the creators love Star Wars and they want to give us the best Star Wars. And it's still a tight story about just a family having adventures. On the other hand, this isn't just the season 2 premiere. This is the real premiere. The premiere for all the normies who heard about it in the first season and are now looking to see what all the fuss was about when they're looking for not Boba Fett and his little green hobgoblin. This season 2 premiere, I think this is going to go down in the history of the fandom as the real premiere for everyone outside of the fandom. Everybody in the fandom gritted their teeth, held their nose, and went to the season 1 premiere hoping against hope for the best, and we got it. But we made a lot of noise about it. We howled about it. We summoned all of our normie friends to join us at the feast. This season 2 premiere, I think the reason it felt so stilted and repetitive at first was that the creators know that, and they're making this a premiere for the normies. Come in, they call. You know this world. You already love this world. It's full of wonderful adventures that are just exotic enough to tantalize you, but familiar enough to keep you comfortable. In this episode, you will find simple, familiar things that you have all known and loved through your lives, through cultural osmosis and half-remembered childhood memories. This is the thing that brings joy to your friends and might bring joy to you. This is the creators wrapping one arm around their beloved fans and reaching out the other arm to welcome everybody else. And I say, good! Come, my normie cousins, my lovers of classics like The Godfather, lovers of Jaws, lovers of Tremors. We have something for all of you held out in Baby Yoda's tiny green hands. Welcome! And then the episode starts in earnest. At first, when added to the odd, stilted awkwardness of the dialogue, I was a bit worried about where this episode was going, I have to admit. The episode started out feeling like it would be preachy and annoying. Evil aggressors, innocent victims, you know, the bloody, simplistic drill that a poorly written show will spit out like bleach-tainted shake from an ice cream machine. But then, the episode just didn't. It got me and pulled me in, and I forgot all my doubts in the moment-to-moment unfolding of the story. Oh, the Marshal. I cannot tell you how much I adore this character, both as a consumer and a creator of art. You see, I'm still not completely sure about them. Yes, he is a bit of Legends, but we don't know how close to Legends they're sticking. And he was such a minor character that there's so much to fill out with him. And he is a hero. Just like Mando, he has proved himself through his actions by the end of the episodes. He not only speaks heroically, he put his life where his mouth was. He is a hero, and yet there is a hint that he was not always so. In the way that he tells Mando his backstory, there are hints that he was not always courageous. Perhaps even he lied to Mando a little bit about his backstory. I am almost sure, and I am sure Mando was sure, that the Marshal lied about not knowing what was in that container that he snatched. He is obviously more educated than the average Tatooinean. Also, there is how his body is presented. He is scrawny, physically weak. At least he appears to be so under Boba Fett's armor. That's a visual cue for untrustworthiness used in almost all visual media, but they never made a huge deal of it. Once he's out of his armor, he appears to be fairly sturdy. And I constantly got the idea that we were watching a character not in crisis, but in a moment of development where he could take the coward's way out, he could make poor choices, or he might make good choices, and you didn't know which one he was going to choose. And he chose to be a hero. And again, going through there, for the majority of the episode, I didn't know if he was going to pull through or flake out on Mando, but he did pull through, and you get the idea that even the Marshal wasn't sure of himself. That this episode was as much character growth for the Marshal as it was world building for the show. And that uncertainty, that feeling of not knowing, doesn't stop with the Marshal's motivations. There were at least 3 distinct moments in this show where I was genuinely on edge because I didn't know what was going to happen next. Now, stories, making stories, taking them apart, this is my life, this is my job, it's what I accept money for. It is very rare indeed guaranteed for any mass-produced media that I can't predict where a story is going, let alone a pulp western like this one. This is what I cut my teeth on, Louis L'Amour. But this one just kept me guessing. The first moment that I really realized that I was in over my head and had no idea where this episode was going was when Mando braced the Marshal after the Marshal took off Boba's helmet. I actually had to pause the show in that moment because I simply hit a wall of uncertainty. Like I said, I'm good at stories. I can almost always tell moment to moment what is going to happen next, but I could not tell here. And this wasn't just uncertainty between two options. There were two, one or the other thing was going to happen and I couldn't tell which. No. I would never have guessed what did happen, and I knew that before it happened, that anything could happen in this moment. And yet what did happen, it felt right. It felt in harmony with this world, in harmony with the story. And then the fan service of this episode, sweet twin suns over Tatooine, that last moment of fan service at the end was wonderful. Now, the moment the character named the beast as a krat dragon, I felt like a little perk of interest. I didn't even know if I could call it a hope, really. You see, this bit of lore that was served to us fans is deep in the Legends or EU lore. I think the most defined use of it was in the book of shorts Tales from Jabba's Palace, the story where the dancer with all the extra boobs escapes and sort of maybe falls in love with the guy she escapes with. But anyway, to see the MacGuffin that resolved that story arc show up here was just chef's kiss, perfect. Granted, there is the size issue. Now let's get into this. In the story Tales from Jabba's Palace, the hero pulls out not one but 3 pearls from the body of a krayt dragon, and all 3 pearls fit into the hand fairly easy if I remember the story correctly. I just remember the pearls being about the size of plums. This pearl is bigger than the Mando's helmet, and there appears to be only one. However, this does kind of make sense on an ecological scale. One presumes that Jabba's palace is much closer to whatever civilization Tatooine has to offer than this new town, mainly because the characters in Tales from Jabba's Palace were able to hoof it over the desert back to the settlement. Therefore, there will be fewer apex predators, and the ones that are there will be smaller than the ones that appear further out in the wilderness near mining towns. I mean, think about it. There were once grizzly bears in California, fairly close to the big cities, but those grizzly bears were always smaller than the ones on Kodiak Island up in Alaska. So it does kind of make sense that a pre-civilization krat dragon way out away from the big cities of Tatooine would be much larger than, and therefore make larger pearls than, a krat dragon that lived within walking distance of a major port city. So a minor question for us fans to argue over. Was the pearl too big? But thank you for giving us this to argue over, Fioni. Thank you. On a final note, someone please inform Honest Trailers that their complaint was heard and responded to. The episode presented us with far more employment options than just cantina keeper and bounty hunter. There is in fact a veterinary dental technician presented prominently on screen, tending to his trade. Now, there is one other little issue I have here. Bantha mouths. I genuinely don't know how I feel about that from either an artistic perspective or a natural science perspective. Granted, the banthas are based off of the desert elephants, but still, those wide teeth and mouths would be extremely difficult to eat spiky desert plants with, especially with no trunk to pick things up off the ground. I just don't know how I feel about it. And on a final note, I want to know who designed the fauna for this episode because they are wonderful. From the naked mole roo rats to the good boy armadillo puppers, they are a delight to see. Excellent ecology. But the good boy armor puppers deserve more love. In fact, Baby Yoda should get a little armor puppy for his next birthday. I just want scritches behind their ears. Except that I wonder if the armor puppers carry leprosy like regular armadillos. Maybe that's why the sand people wear those cloth strips. Anyway, so what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Did you like the bantha mouths? Did Peli speak with your voice? Would you have drunk the water? Leave a like below if you agree or have any theories that I missed, and leave a comment telling me which homage you liked best. Go check out Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, a book of human absurdity, fun science fiction for when you run out of Mandalorian episodes to watch, or for you to read between Mandalorian episodes, and peace out, my wonderful viewers. And that is our dose of daily weirdness for today. If you found that you like what you heard, wander on over to Indiegogo and purchase a copy of Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data. The link is below. If you don't want to purchase the book or find you can't at the moment, share this around if you think it's worth sharing. Hit up Facebook, Tumblr, whoever, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next chapter.